Hello, my name is Naomi Richardson, and welcome to another episode of the Power Chat series. This episode is Below the Surface, Vulnerability and Healing Part 2. My guest today is Andrea Burks, a mental health advocate and a Detroit native with a Bachelor of Science in Communications and Marketing, as well as a Master of Science in Public Health and Administration from Eastern Michigan University. I invited her back on today's episode to speak more on our last conversation. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So, in our last episode, we went over the symptoms that Black women have when it comes to mental illnesses and how they differentiate from other individuals, dismantling harmful stereotypes that further the notion of Black women feeling guilt, shame, and grief when dealing with their own health issues. And Andrea gave me a wonderful description of who she is as an individual. To start us off, I want to know your daily routine for work and life and how you combat bouts of anxiety.
So routine when it comes to anxiety is super important. A lot of people like to do routines, but routines are things that help me stay in control of my daily day-to-day tasks, my life. It gives me structure. The one thing about anxiety is that you feel like you don't have control over anything. You're trying to predict the future. So for me, knowing exactly what I have to do in the morning, and that is what helps keep me structured. So like everyone else, typically I get up, I have my structured morning routine. Hygiene is important, especially when you're dealing with mental health. Um, so oftentimes that is a factor some people skip. I find that washing away the night and the day are extremely important. So I have a strict morning routine. Um, I make sure I have everything in my mind pre-planned. I know what time I have to be out the house. Or by 8 o'clock, I know I need to be out the house no later than 7:30, depending on the drive. Um, when it comes to working, if you living 20 minutes away from wherever I decide to work that day, I 6:45, do my routine. I've never been a big breakfast eater. Breakfast kind of doesn't work well on my stomach in the morning. I am
Same.
still very but I grab a cup of water or my little container, put some juice in there. Um, really struggling, I have a little bit of caffeine. Um, make sure that all my things, my bags and stuff are packed the night before. So routine is really what is important when it comes to anxiety. A lot of people don't do routine. I swear by at night. I have a night routine. I have a shower routine. I have a bedtime routine. I have a facial routine. Routines help me stay focused.
That's good. When having discussions with colleagues, friends, or individuals who are combative against the idea of advocating for mental health or have negative thoughts when it comes to individuals who experience mental illness throughout their daily life, how do you turn the conversation into a meaningful one with purpose?
So in the past, I was never very vocal about mental health. I try to establish that in the beginning. A lot of people think I was just like out the gate advocating. No, because I am an individual who suffers with her mental health, and so for years I would keep it a secret. When I hear people talk negatively about people who suffer with mental illness or struggle with their mental health, I want one personally, maybe they have something going on with themselves that just hasn't been diagnosed. So I try to approach every situation as it comes. I am not one of those people that go aggressively and go, no, that's not, bottom line is people are going to have their opinions. Their opinions are just that, it's theirs. Just like my opinion about people who struggle with mental illness and mental health are mine. Um, I can't change their opinion. I can show them different ways on how to maybe address someone who may struggle with their mental illness or mental health. I am out in the forefront to show people we all aren't walking around in zombie mode. We aren't stupid or make poor decisions. We aren't all aren't falling out in the middle of the street or suicidal or homicidal. We are individuals who are regular people. We get up, we go to work, we try to associate the best we can, we try to socialize. Some of us have families, uh, some of us have careers, we're business owners. So, is approach it from a side of understanding. Is it frustrating? Yes. I connect with people all the time who judge people with mental illness. There's still some people who are still under the belief that mental illness is not a real thing because they're not educated. And I think that's important to remember is that everybody is not versed or educated on how complex mental illness really is. They hear one thing on the internet and they run with it, but they don't do research on what that actually looks like. They have cousin JoJo who may have a severe case of bipolar or depression, and they run with that. But then they meet me and they're like, "You don't have depression, you don't have anxiety, you don't suffer with grief." And I go, "Oh, well, I'm clinically diagnosed, but I look normal." And that's the thing. Mental illness does not have a look. And that's been my biggest catchphrase. It just does not have a look.
Yeah, and I don't think mental health discriminates either.
Exactly. It doesn't. I think some people feel that because theirs hasn't been pushed to the front, that they don't suffer from anything. I think we all suffer from a touch of something. Life just in general forces us to deal with certain issues. Some of us a little bit more than others tend to want to pay more attention to it. Others decide to just push it to the back of their mind because they don't want to come out and say, well, I do have a problem, I do have issues. Me, I discovered mine early at 19. Had it not been pushed to the forefront, I probably would have gone another 10 years not believing that I was suffering with anything. So I go in with an open mind. I think that's important, but you got to have thick skin because there's always going to be someone that's going to be ignorant when it comes to their opinion. I deal with it every single day. I deal with it when it comes to dating. I deal with it when it comes to talking to coworkers. I never forget I was called into a meeting at my job because I had had a depressive episode and had to take time off from work. And originally, I was told by my direct supervisor that I needed to apologize to my team for having a depressive episode. I never forget, I went up to my director and I said, "This is how you all treat people who work for the government, who have mental illness, who deal with people every single day, who have mental illness and need assistance, but you can't give the same to your staff." And I think after that day is when they start putting things in place to help us suffer with mental illness, put things in place to protect us. I never have ever after that have ever apologized for being who I am.
Yeah. How do you implement your Bachelor of Science in Communications and Marketing, as well as a Master of Science in Public and Health Administration, into your advocacy? And how are they or can be integrated into the community if they aren't already?
So, communications and marketing, remember, you are your own promotion. When I went into mental health advocacy, um, the first thing I said was, I need to show them personally what this looks like. So that's where the marketing comes from. That's my degree is I market myself. I get on Instagram and I talk to my audience. I get on Facebook. I talk to my audience. I go on TikTok sometimes and I talk to my audience. But I'm also always wearing my um, logo, my brand, let people know who I am. I have community events that I attend, and I talk about myself. I talk about my mental health. You have to advocate for yourself. That is a form of marketing. Because, like I said, the reason why I started Healing Through Vulnerability was because I was tired of people pushing a narrative about me that did not exist, that was not correct. And so for me to change the narrative, I had to market me. So communication is key. I had to get out of eventually the social anxiety part of this business and have to communicate. So I'm forced to work with other business owners. I'm forced to go to different conferences. I'm forced to talk to people who suffer with mental illness or who need help. I'm constantly being reached out to talk about what are some solutions that they can help or that has helped me so that they can also be a little bit more confident in their diagnoses. So communications and marketing is so easy to implement. When it comes to my master's in, health administration and public administration, I worked in government for almost 10 years. I worked in healthcare for about 4 or 5 years. And I've seen all types of individuals who have struggled with their mental health. But I use that part of my advocacy to, or my degree and my experience with working to help reach the population that no one wants to touch. Um, just recently, I hosted a community closet for just women and children who suffer with mental illness or who are survivors of domestic violence. So I hosted a closet called Empower Her Closet. It was a fundraiser, and I had about 1,000 or so clothes and shoes and toys and other items that were donated. And I set up a complete shopping experience for these women. It was free. They could come in. We gave them bags and they could load up the bags with whatever they wanted. There was no limit. Um, but this is my way of reaching out to the community. That is what public service is being part of the community and reaching out to the community the best way you can. Part of my degree field was learning public policy. I already know there's no policy and laws in place to protect us individuals who suffer with mental illness. There's nothing in place that when we are having a crisis, that we have a safe place to go. The police are called, and some of the police are not trained, and so we end up being uh, having violent crimes committed against us because they lack understanding and education on what our episodes look like. Do we want to be out here yielding weapons against the police? No. But our brains and our minds are not making the connection during the middle of a crisis. Do we want to not listen and pay attention to law enforcement? No, we don't. So my job is to use my degree field to find policies or rights to our local law enforcement to put policies and laws in place in order to stop affecting those who suffer with mental illness. There's still some employers that will not hire people who have a history of mental illness. They believe we cannot handle our jobs. They believe that we are not mentally and educationally equipped do our job. So people are afraid to say anything because they won't get the job. But there are some employers who will not hire you and will purposely discriminate against you because of your mental illness. Although it's against the law, they will still do it because
Yeah.
they find a loophole. So there needs to be things in place. And I've started writing letters to local representatives. I am a good friend of one. I went to high school and college and grad school with him. He is a state representative. I've started reaching out to him about what we can do to put policies in place and laws in place to protect us who suffer with mental illness. But a lot of us are fully functional. Even
Yes.
ones that have been diagnosed with illnesses that may not be considered fully functional, we can still do some things. And if we're not able to fully work, then we need to be able to obtain our disability. And they've made it difficult for people who struggle with mental illness to not be able to obtain their disability so they can at least function and still pay bills like normal adults in society.
Thank you. So this is our last question. What do you hope to accomplish in the near future when it comes to advocating for individuals who struggle with advocating for themselves or finding support?
So ultimately, with healing through vulnerability, I create a safe space for individuals who struggle with their mental illness like me. I have found that I going this journey for over 20 years. One of the things I did not ever feel for a long time was being safe to be myself, be authentically myself. I'm having a depressive episode. I felt like I would have to hide in my apartment for weeks on end because I did not want people to see exactly what I was struggling through. Or I always felt like I had to throw on a fake smile to just be able to associate with individuals, even though I was dying inside. And so my goal has always been to open a space, particularly for women, their children, if needed, to come in and feel as though they're part of a community that will not shun them. My goal eventually is to hopefully finally start putting eyes on mental illness to help women and children, particularly because that's what my brand is focused on, to be able to obtain or achieve their goals, whether it's going back to school at their own pace, finding employment that they absolutely enjoy and can actually do, obtaining their disability, coming in and getting therapy, meeting other women of like-minded means, building friendships, when they're having a depressive episode, coming in and knowing that they have a safe space to call home, making sure that they have access to therapy, making sure they have access to resources they need. So the fight will always continue.
Yeah,
Uh, but that is my goal with healing through vulnerability and this advocacy for mental health.
that's amazing. I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to interview you and speak to you because I really enjoyed our last episode and I really enjoyed this episode.
Oh, you're so welcome. I do apologize again for having technical issues. I'm usually not
That's
that
okay.
like space, and so struggles follow me everywhere. But anytime, I definitely appreciate you having me on
No problem. Have a good day.
too.
Bye, everyone.